How's it going, everybody? Welcome to my first segment of BA Talks. Today I'd like to cover my lessons learned from my first year of self-publishing. As I've mentioned previously, so far I've published one novel called Of Blood and Stone, Vigilantes Creed Book 1, which is an urban fantasy / superhero novel based around a gargoyle. Like many things in life, I do wish I would have approached the release of my first novel much differently. So what I'd like to do is be able to give other people a chance to learn from my mistakes and give them a bit of a perspective before they take that dive into trying to get self-published or going through the muddy waters that is traditional publishing. In regards to my choice to self-publishing, that's something I'm going to cover in a different video and go in depth on that. But to start out, to give you a little bit of a breakdown of how I self-published. Now, of course, I took about 6 years to write my first 2 novels, which initially I wrote as one whole novel, and then decided, well, it makes sense to split it up since it was over 600 pages long and well over 160,000 words. So once I got it professionally edited and had everything prepared from a manuscript perspective, I did find a good artist that I was very happy with for my cover. But that kind of goes into my first piece of advice, is to take your time in regards to designing a cover, but also finding the right artist. After having, written my book for over 6 years, I was becoming a little bit impatient. I wanted to get it out there. I wanted to take it to the next step, and I think I definitely rushed that stage. So adding to this advice is getting on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and really seeing what artists are out there and try to see, which ones line up with what you imagine your story looking like if it was actually drawn out. And for me, I did that much later in the game. I just recently found the right artist for my style of writing and what I want my book to look like if it was actually drawn out on a cover or in a comic or whatnot. So I think people really need to take the time, get on those social media platforms, and just find all sorts of artists, follow them, and just see what they post, go through their past media, and just see if anything really clicks from a style perspective. And that goes into the next part of it, which is the investment. Of course, you can just buy kind of a stock image or get a cheaper artist, get it up quicker, but you're definitely gonna regret doing so. If you really want to have a cover that blows people's minds or really gets them invested in your work initially, you gotta spend the money, and that might mean spending $300, $400, $500+ to have the right cover. And again, that might mean you might have to take a couple more months or a half year to save up the money, depending on your situation, but I highly, highly recommend it. And that's the thing with covers, with mine, I really liked it, but the problem is it was really hit or miss. And I think a lot of people could misinterpret what type of book it is. Some people thought it was a straight horror book based on how the cover looked like. Others, because the face of the character looked a bit too young, they thought it was more of a teenager style book, which it definitely isn't. So now that I've found the right artist and put a lot more thought into it, I actually took scenes or events from the book, put them on my cover for the first book and the second book, and really, really took the time to put in words the detail that I wanted the artist to put into the art, and also gave reference material and pictures, and did PowerPoint presentations and everything. So to wrap up that point, it's take the time, do your research, and then put in the work to get as much detail as possible to show what your book has to offer in your cover art. From there, I think what's really important is just building a following before you publish. This is where I really messed up. Again, just being impatient. I went right into self-publishing, and then tried to share links and art and whatnot. And I really wish I would have just connected with more creators, interacted with them, and got the 800 or so followers I have now prior to releasing the book, to just draw more interest initially. And then on top of that, doing YouTube videos to introduce yourself, try to get people on board with what you're creating. What goes hand in hand with that would be doing a crowdfunding. I think if you're going to self-publish, it makes sense to do a crowdfunding. You have literally nothing to lose. It's a good chance to get friends and family members to invest initially in your work, and it'll give you a much better chance to recover your costs from an editing perspective, an art perspective, a printing perspective, because if you go right to KDP or other self-publishing avenues, they're going to take a lot bigger chunk of meat out of the potential earnings, and it's going to take you a much longer time to recover your costs. So I think it would make sense, for a lot of novelists to, again, if you have a following, you have good connections with other creators that could share your work, then just do like a $500 goal crowdfunding, which could just end up being 25 to 50 backers, and see what you can accomplish on that front. And the first 2 points go hand in hand with that crowdfunding, right? If you have a really attractive piece of art, then people will be more willing to invest. If you have a really good artist that has a following to their name, that's another kind of point that adds into that I recommend is, find an artist that, of course, has a good reputation, but also has a good following and is popular and well known within a community. Because if they are interested in your work or really enjoyed working on that piece of art, there's a good chance they'll share it, and that will get to other well-known creators, and that could create a bit of a snowball effect for your crowdfunding. So the more people you can reach, the better chance you have of having a successful crowdfunding. So that's those initial points were huge. Things I wish I would have done previously, but now I'm going to do that going forward for my upcoming project and relaunch, which I'll go into more detail here in another video soon. So besides that, I think another easy thing to do is just to interact with other creators on Twitter, on Facebook, and in their live streams. Get other people, whether it's the readers in the chats or in the comments or the creators themselves, just to recognize your name, and then they can put your name to your art when you post it, and hopefully they'll want to share your work, or there'll be interesting topics that you can bounce ideas off of one another and chat online. So that's something I try to do with the little time I have, and I highly recommend people doing that prior to doing crowdfunding or a release. Another thing prior to the crowdfunding and release would be doing an email list, which of course you can do the pre-launch on crowdfunding as well. I think that's very important. You can keep your potential readers or backers informed of your progress and share more art or blurbs or sections of your writing. I think that's really important. Additionally, creating a website, which is something I never did and I need to do before I do my crowdfunding that I plan on doing, just so that you can get some more traffic organically through Google or other sites. And then once you're doing the crowdfunding, you need to, in my opinion, do all the things that you were doing previously, all the points I already hit on, to really drive it home. Utilizing YouTube, doing live streaming, getting in chats, sharing your work, and also using TikTok. In my opinion, some people have been really lucky with TikTok. If you do some videos that are just really short to the point, showing your book or your art, or a bit of a synopsis or pitch, people have been really successful on that, so that's something I plan on doing as well. And then once you get to the point where you're going to be printing or uploading on KDP or Sparks Ingram or whatnot, it's really important to make sure that your formatting is in check. One thing I really struggle with KDP is you got to do some sample prints several times to make sure that you could have your Word document seemingly perfect and it'll still print crooked sometimes. The alignment won't match what was in your file, and even Word itself can be difficult with justifications and whatnot. So I highly recommend you just hire a formatting expert or someone that can really make it ready for uploading on those sites. And another struggle that I really dealt with, that I hope I can help people avoid, is the color profile for the image for your cover that you upload on those sites. If it is not, for example, KDP, which is the one I'm the most familiar with, if you don't have a CMYK color profile, the image that is uploaded to the actual Amazon site will look like garbage. However, when it prints, it can look perfect. And dealing with their customer service is a bit of an animal. You really got to push them and be really blunt and direct to get support on there. I went through about 3 iterations of 6 emails just to get the answer of, oh, you need a CMYK color profile, which someone that doesn't do art themselves or isn't really up to speed on that side of things is not going to know that, and they don't spell it out for you when you're going through the process. So making sure you have the right color profile is crucial, because otherwise, if there is some organic traffic to the Amazon site, people might overlook it just because the image looks blurry or doesn't look proper. So that's one struggle to be prepared for. Another thing I recommend is doing Comic-Cons and other events and making sure you're using the proper advertising materials. I got about 30 to 40% of my book sales in the first year from doing Comic-Cons. Typically you can get your investment back and then make some profit on top of that. But again, the advertising materials is having the correct banners and just set up for your booth. I did the really nice thick foam posters on stands. I would not recommend those though, because you have to bubble wrap them a ton and be really careful when you transport them. And then those stands can be really wobbly, and anyone that's done a Comic-Con will know you don't have much space. The people behind you are constantly pushing their chairs back and bumping the stands. Your poster can fall over or get a hole in it, and there's $50 down the toilet. So at least for me in the future, I'm going to do one of those rollout banners that's kind of freestanding with more of the glossy material. And again, just making sure that looks really well, because the biggest thing is just catching people's eyes from afar. Some people can just start conversations and start talking to them, but a bit of an introvert. So for me, it's making sure that I can pull them in with the art, with the design of the booth, and then you can have conversations just naturally happen from that standpoint. So again, essentially I just want to be able to help people prevent making the mistakes I made, because again, everybody gets really eager and they get their hopes up, even with self-publishing, but people also need to be realistic. You know, if you have a huge following or have friends that have really great connections or big followings, you might hit the ground running. But if you're quote unquote a nobody, without many followers, or is a bit of an introvert, it's going to be a bit of a struggle, because again, people aren't just going to find it on Amazon. Amazon does not help market your book at all. If anything, since it's not going to start off as a higher ranking book, it's going to be quite hidden. Even my book, especially at the start, I couldn't even find it. I could search the exact title, or even just author name, and there would be 2-3 pages of other books before it. I would literally have to put the entire title plus the exact author name just to find it, and it still wouldn't be towards the top. There would be books that aren't related or have a somewhat similar title name that are before it. So I can pretty confidently say that people aren't just going to be able to organically find your book on Amazon or Google or anything like that. You are going to have to push on Twitter, on Facebook, share. Some people do a ton of spamming. That's not my cup of tea, but you're going to have to put yourself out there to pull people in to get to Amazon, to get your reviews, which is another thing that's very difficult. I've heard a lot of people, if they're lucky, they get 10% of the buyers to do reviews. So you can imagine you could sell over 100 books and not even have 10 reviews. So that's something, you got to really try to remind the people that have bought your book to do reviews. And, a lot of people that buy books, your book might sit there on their shelf for a year or two before they read it. So making posts and stuff just to remind them of your book, so that maybe they'll, pick it up and start reading it, is also important. You can't just be silent. You will see I'm a bit silent right now on my book, and that's only because I'm planning a relaunch to go along with the second book, with new art and everything. So I quite honestly would rather people wait and invest in my future campaign than buy the existing book, which that'll be included and available in the campaign as well for people that really like the current art. So that'll always be available. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me, on my DMs or whatnot. And I'll try to help people out as much as I can. These are the key things that kind of popped into my head that I figured hey, maybe I can help some people go through the struggles that I went through, because the whole process is a bit of a mind-bending experience. It can be very depressing at times, but I don't want to also sound too down on the subject, because there's some major upside if you do things right, especially in comparison to the avenue of trying to get traditionally published, which that'll be my next video. The whole topic of self-publishing versus traditional publishing and why I decided to self-publish. I hope others can learn from my experiences and have more success than I did in my first year and really hit the ground running. So thanks everyone for watching, and BA Talks number 2 will be coming soon. Take care everybody, and God bless.